It's now or never, my friends. Stars are being born. And thank you, everybody who came back for the Patience Artist Journal, December 16th, 2022, Berlin. It's good to be back. My name is Adrian Pocobelli. It is wonderful to be back. Again, thank you for the patience. I feel like I might have to rebuild this audience. Who knows? But, it all comes down to values at the end of the day. And, like I told you before I left, I hadn't seen my family in years, including my parents. And so that was a long overdue thing. So I can't be like, sorry, guys, I gotta, take a couple hours to make, my video podcast, as much as I'm enjoying it, right? But now I am back, and as you guys know, when I'm in Berlin, I am 100% committed to our situation here, and it is a huge situation we have here. There is a lot going on. So, without further ado, stars are being born, aren't they? Uxine, look at this. I mean, how long has it been? I guess it's been almost 3 weeks, 2 weeks and 4 days, I think. Maybe 2 weeks and 6 days, whatever it is, since I was last here. Uxine, is on Super Rare, as he announced on December 7th, so 9 days ago. It feels like longer, with this incredibly beautiful announcement. Again, I could go on, really, about Uxine, and we have, so we don't need to go too deep into it. But really what happened here, most of you know, Xcopy bought some works, probably the most famous crypto artist, or at least the biggest, the guy who brings in the most cash for his work, the most prominent, the most beloved, I'd say, by, a lot of the Ethereum community, and outside of it. He kind of gave, it's a demonstration in social proof, where if someone buys your work, like if Xcopy buys your work, dear viewer, you may be next, right? So it's a demonstration in social proof, which is, in social proof, for those that don't know, is, the classic example is the testimony on your Amazon review. You're not sure about the product. You think it might be okay. You read the reviews and they're all incredible, and you have to get that product. That's social proof. It works on a very deep level. Back to our anthropology discussion, everything is anthropology, as I like to say, even though that's not quite accurate, but you take my point. So anyways, as you can see here, we have 1 billion tabs to go through. As my mom said, is the next episode going to be a 3-hour episode? And no, the answer is no. So anyways, but again, the decisions that Uxine is making are just outstanding, from the iconography to everything. I kind of missed the boat a little bit, hilariously. I mean, I've been talking about it. I kind of had my list, my bookmark of Uxines that I wanted to pick up. And then I saw the tweet where Uxine had tweeted out that Xcopy's buying the works, and I thought, this is my chance. I better go now. And then, of course, Binance doesn't do trades in Canada. So I couldn't trade any Bitcoin for Tezos. So there I was, and I just thought, well, that's it. There's your regulation. So anyway, I missed the boat. I mean, luckily I have a few, but, I had a nice kind of bookmark, a whole bunch of bookmarks, and I was just waiting to make my move when I buy 10 at a time. So anyways, so it goes. You can't have them all. So anyways, look at how well he did on Super Rare. Cult of Privacy. Again, the iconography, everything, mixing, Renaissance kind of monks and Renaissance kind of style painting, but not obviously with, the surveillance camera, and also this kind of, what I want to call this omnipresence of death in the skeleton, but it's not a cliche. Using skulls are actually quite difficult because it's sort of seen as such a cliche. And he manages, through his brilliant use of iconography, to avoid that. So look at this. And I mean, what I love about this, too, is you have this halo around the, monk-like figure with the surveillance camera as a head or as an eye. And then you have like his, matrix-like tube that's going into him, the info feed, which is brilliantly distorted. You see how it goes outside the lines? So you see like the X-copy influence in a sense, but again, completely made his own. He takes a lot of influences. It's reminiscent of, like, you probably know the story, maybe you don't. Like when the Sistine Chapel, when Michelangelo was doing the Sistine Chapel, not to overstate things here, but that's what we like to do here, is look at historical allusions. And more might be happening here than people realize at the same time. As much as we celebrate this stuff, it's actually potentially quite important, what we're talking about here, all of us. But when Michelangelo was making the Sistine Chapel, so the story goes, as far as I recollect it, Raphael was working on the four stanza, the four rooms, also in the Vatican, which are incredibly famous, the School of Athens and with, what is it called? There are four, and yeah, the name's escaping me, but where the, Christ is taking and it's coming down. Anyways, all to say, so the story goes, if memory serves, is Raphael was taking, I don't know if it was not Bernini, but it was one of the architects of the Sistine Chapel, super famous, brought Raphael to see Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel, and after that, Raphael goes back and changes everything. Okay, and so Raphael was sort of known for kind of using, like, Perugino was his master, using a ton of influences and kind of synthesizing it into a brilliant, Raphael is arguably like the most famous, greatest painter of all time. So now, I don't want to overstate things here with Euxine, but he's doing wonderful work. And what I like, and my point here is, he's taking influences, say like the flashing lights, he's making it his own, and then he's pushing it back out. He's using a lot of the tropes, you might say, that we see in the NFT scene, synthesizing them and making them brilliant and completely his own. And look at this, 4.2 ETH, $5,500 on his Genesis work. And you know what else I love about this? This little part right here, like whatever this is, I love that, because it kind of adds a mysterious, irrational, poetic element to the work. This is not just, narrative painting. This kind of adds a bit of what I want to call a modern flair, okay? So not to say this, I think we have modern flares everywhere here, but an interesting, just on a kind of rational, irrational decisions, when we're talking about poetry here, a very interesting decision here. Continuing on, we also have this piece. So now, again, multi-chain. So he has just put out this work on object. Now look at this. Let's just update this and hopefully not kill my mic. Again, when you have 100 tabs open, you take a big risk here. I take a big risk. Euxine, content 724. The decisions everywhere here are brilliant. And this, again, it's beautiful. And look at, how Xcopy has that brushwork that we all like? Well, Euxine has his own brushwork, and you see, just letting the texture, show through here with his brilliant, just brilliant work. So anyways, and almost like a non-finito skeleton here, like a half skeleton. So we're getting some pretty serious poetry here from Euxine, and look at the market here. Edition of 11. So we're almost seeing like a redux of Louis Osborne here. As I said, stars are being born here, and that is the promise of this scene. I go away for 2.5 weeks, and look at what happens to Euxine's market. So things can happen very fast here. So, if you want to get this right now, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, the minimum you'd have to spend is 50 Tezos for this edition of 11. So, yeah. So, and it's awesome. And again, this matte black, everything about it is beautiful. So anyways, big shout out to Euxine and congrats. I have not forgot about the Acid House playlist, by the way. And also, so this is, again, I'm liking Uxine's ambition here too. And this is brilliant because you see what he's doing here. And he mentioned in another tweet, he had a couple of these tweets out. So he's working with screen printing, as far as I understand. And what you see here, and this is not really the correct use of the word, but it's kind of a convenient word to use. You're seeing kind of a deconstruction of a GIF. Now that is not, we can go in a future episode, but we have a billion tabs here. Deconstruction scholars would say, this is how it's commonly used, that word. Oh, it's, taken apart. That's not quite the correct, in my estimation, use of the word. And I'm not an expert, and nor do I claim to be or anything. But yeah, it has to do with privileging, et cetera, et cetera. And again, we can go into that when we have more time. But you see how he's taking apart the image right here of the GIF. Okay, and this is brilliant. Okay, this is something actually that I have thought about, which I'll show you in the next, but not in this way. Like he's putting it all on one piece of paper, right? So, but it's along the same lines of thought, and I'll show you. So again, and playing with the colors, making a credible version of a print version of a GIF, okay? A credible version. This is not the GIF. And so traveling through the mediums, which I'd argue is the main conversation here in contemporary art. And again, it's like, we can't go into it, but we will. It's sort of like, I remember seeing this Jeff Koons work, and a lot of people don't like Jeff Koons, and it was probably built by the studio and not painted by him. That's not the point. The point is, I saw this massive image, oil painting. It was here in Berlin at Contemporary Fine Arts, it was called, the gallery, about 4 or 5 years ago. And it really stood out because I think there was a rose or there's something about it. But what was so profound about that work is Koons painted the JPEGization. You know when JPEGs are distorted because they're low quality? There was a painting of the JPEGization of the rose or whatever it was in that image. That idea is traveling through the mediums. So that's what we see here. Now, so remember this, and I thought to myself, I never shared this because I hadn't seen anybody do stuff like this, but here Uxine is doing it. Now, my concept here, remember there's this GIF that I was working on, or that I released. Now, traveling through the mediums, I thought to myself, here, how do you choose one non-finito over another? Because I wish I could stop this. If I click on it, it doesn't stop. But if I could, I would stop each one of these, and what you'd see is each one of these versions of this work are kind of beautiful in and of itself, from my perspective. And so I go, well, why one over another? Right? Like, to me, it's like, why should one, they all have their merits, right? So how would I display this? So in my kind of gallery in my mind, were I to show a work, I could do a whole show, just one room, let's say, of this. You put this on, let's say, a projector on one wall, and then along the sides of the wall, you'd put, for example, and it would be a ton of work, so who knows if I'll ever do this, but you would put a screen print of each still along the wall, and there's maybe 25 stills in here, and that would be the work, right? And again, traveling through the mediums. And so when I saw this, I just thought, yeah, we're thinking along the same lines here, Uxine, and I think it's brilliant, and I think you are, in my estimation, yeah, this is getting serious over here. So good work, congrats. Uxine is probably going to be huge. In a sense, he's already becoming huge. Like, stars are being born, okay? And the ingredients are there. He seems to be a pretty young guy, and he's incredibly productive. So this is going somewhere, okay? Quick shout out to Paul Sims. Remember this work here? I was trying to figure out the reference. Paul Sims has helped us out. The Purple Drank piece is a homage to the Oath of Horati, a painting by French artist Jacques-Louis David, painted in 1784 and now on display in the Louvre. It's one of the best-known paintings in the neoclassical style. Thank you, Paul Sims. So I brought that up for us here. So here we go, okay? So who is it? Jean-Louis David? How do we say it? Jacques-Louis David. Les Sermons des Horaces in the Louvre. And I love knowing where paintings are. So anyways, very, very cool. Also, Popple had a quick note on the authorship and AI debate. This idea of, if you're making prompts, are you really the author of the work? Which I think is a very interesting question. So let's just quickly look at Popple's right up here. I've played quite some with Stable Diffusion. I'd say that most of the time, AI does not produce what I really expect from the prompts if it's a sophisticated scene that I ask. It's a bit like opening blind box toys, you know what will be in it approximately, but you never know for sure. But yes, it does produce interesting images, sometimes beautiful ones, and one can generate hundreds of them and pick out the desired ones and use them to make things they want to do with. However, the above-mentioned nuances makes me hesitant to claim authorship over AI-generated images, even though I am using my own original prompts and customized tweaking. By the way, thanks for the printing tips. I was thinking using colored paper and just print black on them too. So post an image. I can't wait to see. We'll happily show them on the show should you do that. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I kind of want to say there is authorship. I mean, that's my temptation when I look at, Strange Thing, who we're going to look at some of his recent works here, and also Charles AI, like kind of the more evolved a style becomes in AI, the more I kind of go, first of all, can I make that in AI? Like, even if I want to copy, and some people can copy. So it's almost like I want to say there is authorship, but let's not put too much weight on the idea of authorship. Let's not, put too much genius on this authorship, so to speak. Let's not attribute too much to them being an author. Yeah, they're the author, but, it's literally they're writing the text. But let's not, my take is maybe we don't put the same kind of weight on the idea of authorship that we might traditionally say for Leonardo or whatever. Okay, so just some thoughts in passing here. Quick shout out. My mom loved this. I loved it. I thought it was super hilarious. This is by Trash Quiet, who I'd never actually heard from before. Pocobelli missing in action. Where is our friend gone? We need our daily XTZ art reviews. Please report any sightings to Crypto Twitter. So this was super cute. And thank you. Hopefully, I have so much open here, guys. Hopefully we don't have issues with... let me try something here. Uh-oh. Okay. Getting worried. Let's see. There's too much open. Okay, we're going to move on here. Joe Rogan's dad. I'm worried, guys. Okay, it's a little off today, but we're just going to have to live with it because there is too much to go through and it's late in the day. Okay, so also, thank you to Joe Rogan's dad. Tribute to our friend Pocobelli. What you going to do, I think that's the guy from The Sopranos. I don't watch barely any Netflix, but I kind of liked it. I liked the arms too. I thought they're pretty close. I haven't gone to the gym for a couple of weeks, so they might not quite be like that, but I love that. So thanks to Joe Rogan's dad, and thank you to Minta. I miss you, Pocobelli. So this is awesome, guys. There's a lot of darkness out there. So it's nice not just to have a candle, but it feels like a torch over here. And so that is why, I am completely committed to this thing. There is a lot of darkness out there. So let's not just be a candle, but let's be a torch, a big, bright, burning torch. Thank you, Minta. Thank you to GloomTube. Right, the day after I left, so to speak, GloomTube picked up this nostalgia study. So that was awesome. Put an offer in for 15 Tezos. And so that's awesome. Nothing like a true star from the Tezos ecosystem picking up a work of yours. They're all going to be a little high today, the images. So continuing on, Chi Moscow Jackson, one of the two people that really encouraged this show when it was basically listened to by 10 people on Spotify, has something to announce. Happy to announce Hologram Gallery in Seattle, Washington is having an open call for our January 5th show 2023. This has been a long time in the making. So Digital Horizon's pretty cool image. And so let's just see here. We're inviting artists who mint on blockchain or are interested to submit 3 to 5 image files that have been minted to either Tezos or Ethereum. For artists that are interested and live in the Seattle area, we will be having a workshop on wallets and minting. So this is awesome. Also, please submit a short artist statement, 150 words or less, and there are the Gmail and Instagram. DM for questions. So give Moscow Jackson a follow. I follow him. Just another, yeah, okay, good. So back to the kind of topic of the day here. I think it was, it's kind of come down here, but it was actually at the top of my trending on Twitter. AI art hate is trending on ArtStation. So this is from a couple of days ago, feels like a week ago. So yeah, and probably a lot of you have seen this. I mean, I feel like we're past this to a certain degree, this whole idea of is AI art, art and this sort of thing. I guess the big criticism now is, well, we'll see it here, that it's taking from creative artists and this sort of thing. So a lector here said, this is probably one of the most beautiful sights to behold in our times in the art world and probably the most creative one in current states of AI. Big protests going on at ArtStation, which I had never heard of, I have to say. Nothing against it, but I just had never heard of it before. And so people are against AI. I mean, I don't know. To me, this is like fueling the flames. This is pouring gas. To me, it's just like, if I'm an AI artist, this is the greatest. Like, I'm just like, keep going, because this is exactly like what I want as an AI artist. So I'm not sure what they're trying to accomplish, because if they're trying to like shut down AI art, first of all, I don't know, like, is the point that I made before is, if your art is so easily copied by AI, then you probably need to push it further. There's probably not enough irrational elements in it, okay? Maybe that's an oversimplification, but that is just kind of my general take. And there's some incredible novel images that are being produced here when you look at the art. So are you just going to dismiss that all as saying, oh, well, strange thing used, let's say, Vermeer or whatever, so that's not especially after, we've been doing remix culture here for over 40 years. You know what I mean? So are we going to go, oh, remix culture is not cool now, when it's like we kind of live and breathe remixing, so yeah. Here's another one, is Akuga art. I created this image for everyone to use wherever they want. AI creates the art you see on the back of artists being exploited. So this is the argument. AI art is currently scraping the web for art and uses it in databases. No artist gave consent to have their art used. We were not compensated. Yeah, I mean, look, we can't have it both ways. If we want to say that Campbell's Soup should not sue Warhol, which they wisely did not because they understood it was good PR, we can't now say that, okay, artists, anything they make is going to be, sanctimonious copyright. The point is, my takeaway here is, if you have a defined style and it's being copied, to me, that just adds value to the original artist, to your work. Because you're going to be the real deal. While these AI artists who are, copying your work and making the cheap versions, quote unquote, and, passing it off as their own, well, that just shows to me, to me, that's just social proof. It's look at how much my art is popular. Look at how great of an artist I am, is kind of like the conclusion. So I don't know, this whole idea like that an artist gives consent, it's kind of like wanting to play it both ways. Like, we want to use art from the web or images from the web, but we don't want people to use our art. And it's just a free-for-all. So anyway, so here's ArtStation. I just thought I'd bring it up. So again, you can see the AI, non-AI, and you see there's a bit of a fantasy. This isn't your typical, put it this way, nothing against, ArtStation, but I probably wouldn't have started this show. I don't think they're like, it's not what I'm, this is kind of like, it's kind of got a fantasy, sort of character to it, and nothing against that, but, so anyways, I mean, that's kind of irrelevant actually to the discussion. So here's ArtStation. Here's Robness Official. We'll let Robness Official do his hot take here. I never actually went to ArtStation, sit there and be like, wow, these are really crazy and out there artists. Most of the time, it's just boring Uber fantasy shit, and the cyberpunk themes are super cliche. So he's being super brutal and harsh. Maybe saying no to ArtStation might be the real, XYZ. So interesting. Generally, so here's a criticism from Clersey. Generally, artists don't dislike AI art because it's not real art. Artists dislike AI art because the programs are trained unethically. So again, using this ethical argument, using databases of art belonging to artists who have not given their consent. This is not about gatekeeping, this is about theft. I mean, you could say the same thing about One Don't Knows and any collage work. So I just don't think this holds up. And I understand the concern. Like if you're, say, an anime artist, or even like if someone were to make work exactly like mine with AI, if it could be done with a text prompt and it's going to be that convincing, I would have to say to myself, I'm going to push this further. And maybe that's just easy to say in the abstract, and when it actually happens, it's much worse. I don't know, but I would say I'd probably need to push this further. There probably needs to be more irrational elements that machines can't emulate. And maybe when you do that, then the machines can emulate that, but where's that? Can they be inspired in the same way? I think the inspiration probably comes from the prompt, right? And if it's exactly like your work, then isn't that just a tribute at the end of the day? Like if I make a Warhol that looks exactly like a Warhol, that doesn't really give me anything, right? It just says that guy really likes Warhol, right? And I kind of think it's the same thing. Or any other artist that, overly copies another artist, just says, okay, that guy really likes that artist, I guess, because he's a big Sigmar Polka fan, So continuing on, and this is kind of looking at the psychology of what might be going on here. Again, Robness Official. The ego will have the hardest time this century to maintain and preserve itself due to technological advancements. And every human will be going through this crisis of what they really are and how fragile their persona mask is in the now easily editable conscious world. So interesting thinking here from Robness. So he's basically like, your ego is going to be put to the test, and everything you hold dear, and if you're really wed to something, whether it's creative style or anything, you will be put to the test. Interesting thoughts, as usual. Charles AI weighs in, as he likes to. Inspiration is like going on a treasure hunt for new ideas and ways to express yourself. So this is interesting, because here, actually, this isn't about defending AI. This came out December 4th, so a little bit before this debate, which is kind of interesting. And he was basically calling out people that were overly copying other AI artists. And we've kind of brought this up, the barriers to entry, the ease of, and we saw that artist who was very close to Strange Thing, who gave tribute to Strange Thing. But you started to see, okay, the barriers to entry could be a problem for some AI artists. Now, let's continue here. Copying is like taking a shortcut and just stealing someone else's treasure without putting in any of the hard work. Seen a lot of Jack Sparrows around here lately. So again, I don't know if you can have it both ways. Like, this isn't like a black or white case here from my perspective, but if you're going to be using databases of images that basically you haven't met, as these, ArtStation people are rightly saying, I debate the ethical issue, but that they say it's ethical, unethical, that's not the world I want to live in as an artist, okay? So I don't see it as unethical. I think it's all fair game. But I don't know if Charles AI can go out here and start complaining about people copying. Like, again, it's like then you have to see it as a tribute. And if your work is so easily copied, well, maybe you need to push it further, and maybe it's not that hard to make, and maybe it's not that special. But that's not to say that about Charles AI. I love Charles AI's work, but just looking at the argument, and I think there's actually quite a bit of originality. So I take his point, and we saw Delta sauce, you could see there is inspiration from Delta sauce from Charles AI. I would argue. I don't know that, but I would argue. I don't see anything wrong with that as long as Delta sauce does his own thing. And this might be a hallmark of AI art, is this idea of authorship might be, reduced. Okay, that's sort of, so, everybody's the author, but maybe that just doesn't mean that much anymore. Okay. So now he's defending AI art. This is, I believe, the next day. AI can help artists come up with fresh, innovative ideas that they have not thought of on their own at an even faster pace. Augmented imagination. I don't disagree with that. And that's maybe the way I'd like to use AI, is just like putting out ideas that I might not think of. Another tweet, I think this increased creativity comes from the fact that we can explore hundreds of ideas and iterate thousands of times before a traditional artist has even finished a piece. So again, a little combative maybe with traditional artists. Like, I wouldn't bite the hand that feeds you, so to speak, but I take his point. And I think his point is, look at how many images we can create, in the time it takes someone to make a normal painting. And fair enough. And we see, and there is, again, Warhol on Basquiat. I envy his speed. Okay, and I think that was a profound statement. And in digital art, we can work even faster than in, say, screen printing or Basquiat. And here in AI, we can even work faster than, say, traditional digital artists. Traditional digital artists, there's a word for us today. That's how fast we go over here. Sabato weighs in, who's trying to get on, or I believe, he put a post, I think, what's his name, from Super Rare, one of the main guys there was saying who should be on Super Rare. Sabato posted some of his friends, and also one of his works. He'd be awesome on Super Rare, of course. I'd love to see how his drawing exercises would perform there. It's, it'd just be fascinating to see, because he's very good at it. If we're going to cancel AI art, can we also cancel conceptual art? Because that SHIT was literally text prompts from the 60s and 70s. Do you think Solowit painted those walls himself? No. Lol, no. He had subcontracted labor to do it for him. Zero talent involved. I mean, you could argue, well, the talent, he means drawing talent. But you could argue the talent, of course, is in the concepts here. But it's kind of exactly, like when you look at ArtStation, you don't see the tradition. Which is why that's why I started doing this show on, starting with Tezos, and now it's kind of, that's the foundation, and we go everywhere from there. And so maybe that's what they don't understand, potentially, not to be too controversial here. But maybe that's the disconnect, is that, when you're familiar with the tradition, it's kind of like, there are artists that have completely copied Warhol, and then they just changed the image, who are well known and respected. I can't remember her name. It's a female artist who's very well known as this kind of like, and there's other artists who totally copy other people's style, and this is seen as kind of brilliant in the contemporary art world for its concept. So this conversation, in my opinion, is way past what's being discussed here in this anti-AI. So to Sabato's point. Continuing on. Now, this is an interesting, Glenn Brown. This is someone who I was trying to remember. Now, I can't remember what they used to call like the Google AI from the 2014, 2015, when we first started getting Google AI. Glenn Brown is with, glad this is going full screen, at least on this one. Glenn Brown is with Gagosian, okay? And so he does these oil paintings, and I don't see AI mentioned. Like, I looked at some of this stuff here, some of the write-ups. There's no mention of AI, but this treatment of I guess these are apples in the still life, looks like it's that 2014, almost kind of garish AI that never really caught on. But when you do it in oil like this, again, the alchemy of going through the mediums, going from one medium to another, this might look really garish, as a digital work if you just hit the AI button, but convert it into an oil painting, it probably, it looks pretty spectacular from over here. And if you look at it as probably a physical work, it's probably utterly stunning, which is probably why it's in Gagosian's, in the fold of Gagosian's, stable of artists there. Burlesque 2008. Now, who knows? Like, I could be totally wrong on this because that's 2008. Did we have? We might have had it. We might have had it because I remember we had it in Montreal, and I lived in Montreal till 2011. So that's what that looks like to me, is that early AI. I could be totally wrong on that. Limbo also weighed in. I love drawing, that's all I know. I tried DALL-E for a day, but I'm incapable of feeling the images the same way. Call me a boomer, whatever. There are 3 artists currently in the space whose AI art I dig a lot, though. So I would say a fairly balanced view from Limbo. And I have to say I relate somewhat. Like I used, AI for a day, and it was a really interesting day, but I didn't feel the need to run back to it. But I still kind of like keep that option open in my mind, but you kind of got to pick your battles here. I do want to return to it. So, but I kind of take his point. Like I wasn't so transfixed that I'm like, obsessed, but I think the beauty of it is telling my brother and other people, like if you spend 2 weeks, 2 hours a day for 2 weeks, you can probably come up with your own style in AI. Again, the barriers to entry are pretty low, and you'd probably be, with some real, even 8 hours a day for 2 weeks, you'd probably become a pioneer in the space pretty quickly. Okay? So, yeah, just some thoughts here. Moving debates here. I just thought this was interesting here, and I got to speed this up, otherwise it's going to be like a 10-hour episode. It will be a 3-hour episode after all. Zach Lieberman, no judgments, but I think too much generative art is trying too hard to look like paper. We are working with pixels, colors, and light here. Why simulate a paper medium? Golan gets a pass, and this is actually important to me because in principle I agree. Actually, when we try too hard to emulate like these physical tropes, it, particularly the paper, it starts to feel a little weird. That being said, that's not an absolute statement. I think there are exceptions to this rule. And I think like Bazaya, I think, has great textures below and they look great. Okay, so, but I just thought this was kind of in principle, I kind of agree with this. And I kind of, like when I'm doing my practice, I kind of avoid, say, putting papers. But that being said, I'll use a brush, like a digital brush that basically emulates, a physical like pencil, or like I did on that nostalgia study that we just looked at. That's basically emulating, it's like a beautiful pencil. Okay, so really you could say from a theoretical point of view, well, what's the difference if you're using emulating a physical pencil or emulating the paper? Same difference. So interesting. And that's why I say, again, the pixel art sketchbook, why I love that is because it's just like, this would never be made physically. Again, my definition of pixel art is digital art with a square brush. And that's it. So anyways, continuing on. A couple of displays here. So this is, I believe in Tokyo. Yeah, this is Dan Control. And you see how good this looks projected? Like how this, imagine this on a TV and then look at this here. I mean, it's a completely different experience. And you could just imagine how awesome this looks when you're like 2 meters away and it's like bigger than you. Okay, I have a projector here, and when I project my works big, say like Peloponnesian War works, again, this alchemy like of changing the medium or changing the screen, scale is kind of, if you see like Warhol's Mao that's like, 30 meters high, or however tall that is, maybe 10 or 15, there's an alchemy in scale, in transforming the scale. And that's something I think digital art really works well with big screens. And just some work in progress from Dan Control here. So you see how he works, right? Because again, he's Mr. Gradient. So he creates these outlines first, and then probably moves in from there. Some more, this is Sky Goodman. I'm going to just mute that because it's just people talking. So again, you just see how good this looks, right? And I'd even go floor to ceiling on that. Maybe it wasn't that simple. So you got to give these credit. Like, and look, maybe it's just wall to wall, but you see how much better these look than on a TV. Like that is an experience, right? And even Sky Goodman would probably be there and go, wow, look at how great that work looks, So very cool. And we had Spiegel's Maskinen, so you get another feel for it. I'd go even bigger. I would try and get like floor to ceiling on these things. Bigger the better, in a sense, or at least that's big enough for me. I mean, that's pretty awesome. Also Bizaya at Tezos Montreal. And yeah, so again, the works could breathe a little bit. They're doing a wonderful job here. They're not on TVs, so good job, guys. This is something I see often on Cyber, is the works are all squished together. Let the works breathe is sort of my 2 cents. That's just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. And Tezos at Art Basel. So here I think they use TVs, but they're massive. And they did actually a pretty good job. But again, you have to ask yourself, are these cropped, these works? Let's see if we can bring them up again. They look great. I will say that. So they did, but you do wonder, are all these works exactly 16 by 9 or 1-to-1 squares? I'm not sure, right? So, yeah. So that we don't know. But anyways, just interesting to see Tezos at Art Basel, Miami Beach. Stars are being born here, folks. Here's Killer Acid at the Scope Art Show in Miami. That big screen just hits different. Yeah, exactly. And kind of a cool, using the column, it looks like that's the support, I think, of the structure there. So very cool. And again, you see scale. It looks great, as Killer Acid points out here. Continuing on, and here's some t-shirts. Let me just make sure this is all stopped. Not My Day to Care. Look at how great these t-shirts look. So again, pretty cool. Let's just look at that. So yeah. So Killer Acid, very cool t-shirts. Speaking of cross-chain, 1-Bit Necro is on Ethereum, and 1-Bit Necro is one of those pretty underground dudes on Tezos, so just interesting to see that. And also, final comment here, and we're going to get into some works. Quila Nina, who's moved from, who makes these beautiful physical works, and she started working with digital recently. She's put out 3 or 4 works. And here she's comparing the two. And of course, she has the credibility to do this. She's doing both. Another physical versus digital painting. What I like most in digital painting is that by using a high resolution, I can add details as if I were working on a huge canvas. But unlike canvases, digital ones don't take up almost any physical space. This is true. And this is kind of underreported and understated, but the zoom tool, you cannot do this with a physical painting. You have to get your tiny little brushes, Dali out there with his 000 or 000 brush, making these tiny little things. And it's kind of amazing what gets made small in the physical world, but digitally it's a whole new ballgame because you can just zoom in all the way to the pixel level. So just an important thing to remember here, as we kind of start cataloging the essential characteristics of digital art, we could say undo, right? We could say the zoom feature. These are things that only digital art can do, right? Because you can't undo in the physical world. You can't zoom in the physical world. We can start to itemize these essential characteristics of digital art, okay? So I think we see another one here, the zoom tool. Now, this is something I want to come back to. I'm just basically putting this out here as a reminder to myself, and that's comparing there are parallel art scenes, okay? Let's just look at Amir Fallah, thread for artists who want to navigate the murky waters of exhibiting in galleries, what I'm calling the contemporary art world. Before you start exhibiting your work out in the world, follow these steps, which will set you up for success. So this is actually a pretty good thread, and I want to return to it. I'm kind of saying this, if I forget, like leave a comment, because there's some really interesting things to discuss here. Maybe I'll discuss it really quickly, because I may forget. There are two parallel art worlds. There is our scene, the digital art scene, which exists on, we could say, Twitter. Many people don't even have websites, right? So it's mostly social media with an emphasis on Twitter, a little bit of Instagram, and then on these platforms like Super Rare, Object, Taya, Foundation, right? And it kind of exists, even you could say there's a little bit of YouTube, say with stuff like this show, right? And that's like the ecosystem. Then there's what I'd call the contemporary art world, which has a completely different kind of ecosystem, which is Instagram, right? Exhibiting in physical galleries. Your website has to be immaculate. So not only do you need a website, but there's a very intense focus on it being perfect. And how do you move up? It took me years to figure this out. And it was just through talking to people who had made it. The way you move up in the traditional art world, which I only learned a year ago, is actually doing open calls, residencies, this sort of stuff. And I'd never applied for any of these in my life. And this sort of stuff. And then your work gets out there. You have a show in like whatever institution or whatever little place. You get to know people. And usually there are curators that are around that have picked you and who are going to be there for that show. Locals come. Let's say you have a residency in Milan. Then locals come, they see, and then they know who you are. They've seen your work. And when a curator is putting a show together, then you get invited to show your work. And so it's really through open calls and residencies that you actually move up in the contemporary art world. I didn't know this forever. Okay, so there are parallel art scenes. And interestingly, something like YouTube, what we're doing on here is, I was watching this video, a little bit of a pretentious video online. I want to talk about this in a future episode, so I'll link to it in a future episode. But they're saying, in the contemporary art world, YouTube is frowned upon. It's say me doing something like this. And I don't disagree with that. And what's kind of interesting, and I don't say it's good, I think it's kind of pretentious, right? But the point is, when people would sort of, on Instagram, artists would, say, hey, Pocobelli talked about my work. They'd put it on Instagram. And I always felt kind of weird. And I put like the like, but I wouldn't share it. Because I felt like, and on an intuitive level, I was kind of sussing this out, that audience and me doing this sort of thing doesn't really, it's not exactly the greatest thing in the contemporary art world. It's sort of seen almost frowned upon to do YouTube. And I'm a pragmatist, so I'm practical, so I'm not inventing the rules. It's like, okay, fine. But it works great. It's been fabulous for sales. There, Gloomtube is picking up work in the digital art scene. Okay, so what I do is I kind of keep them siloed a little bit. And, then if someone digs deeper, I don't advertise in the contemporary art world that I say I have a YouTube. But if someone is digging deep, they go into my, what they have like Linkfire and these different things where you have your 10 links on Twitter, right? You click on the link, then you get your 10 links of wherever you go. Then if they want to dig deeper and they see it, then they go, oh, this person has all this stuff on the digital art scene. This person has range, and it's kind of more exciting rather than me hitting them over the head and say, look, I have a YouTube, right? Which maybe there's people who, it's kind of a snobby scene out there. And we don't have to like it, but it's kind of like, be pragmatic. We want to make it. Okay, so anyways, so this is an interesting feed here. As you can see, we're still have a ton, and there are tabs hidden behind here. So let's continue. But I want to come back to that. So over to some works. Gloomtube, Nostalgia Dealer. Awesome piece. Unfortunately, we don't have the full screen here, but we're going to live with it. So awesome piece here by Gloomtube. Pretty original, I would say. Working with nostalgia here, and I just think it's awesome. Blockbuster video. This sold out right away, and I thought, okay, I'm finally going to buy a work. He offers them for cheap, and I would, I'd been out of practice, I guess, from doing this, being off for a couple of weeks, didn't buy much, and if you don't refresh, you have to refresh and refresh and refresh, because if you wait for the notification here, it was already sold out. By the time the notification came, which is what I did because I was out of practice as a collector, it was already sold out. So what you need to do is, if someone like Uxine, if he's posting if it's going to be available for sale, or if Gloom2 puts out a work, you have to refresh until it's available so that you can beat the notification here, because you may be too late. And it shows the healthiness of this market. I mean, look at this. Listed at 2308, so at 2309, before the notification was out, sold out. And some people bought like 2 or 3, some people bought 2. So you're going to get the flippers there, and now, accept offer. Someone at least, got it for 18, but that person made 10 Tezos, now for 30. So this scene, is quite healthy here at 30 Tezos, at selling out before the notification. Okay. Kappa Sage. So still available, still 8 available. So steadily selling here. This was just released, I think, yesterday. So Business and Beach, summer SHIT, like stealing an ice cream truck. So just more mayhem from Kappa. So good to see him. Interesting composition with the bricks here and some Coronas. So always interesting. Oakland A's and everything. Contemporary clothing. So interesting work from Kappa Sage. Continuing on. Rat Cloaksy. Now this happened a little while ago here. Let's just look at the dates here. This is December 9th. Feels like, so it was a week ago. So he came out with this work, something on the chair, and it actually went for quite a bit of money for him, or like on the higher end. So again, this kind of Francis Bacon-esque face here, the multiple horse, 3 legs, all of his tropes, interesting shadow, the painterly floor, 400 Tezos. Pretty good. And I believe there was a bidding war on this. So, you see here with 45 minutes left at 170, and someone really wanted it. This is the anonymous collector, by the way, our, famous anonymous collector who is very enthusiastic. Here is another work that just kind of caught my eye, and this is Lu Lan Wu. So, never seen them before. So anyway, just interesting work here. Colorful, lots of stuff going on. Went for 1.4 ETH on Super Rare. We're doing a little something extra for anyone, and these are the days that hold all time together. Marry everything and be happy always. So I guess a bit of a holiday piece, which we're going to see more and more of. I thought this was brilliant. I thought this kind of had a real surrealist flair. I saw this on Twitter. Someone who I had never seen before, Gozo, reserve of 1 ETH, and I thought this was a pretty nice piece here. So just kind of surrealistic, very interesting. I even like the movement and everything, the colors, and felt like a somewhat of a breakthrough work here. Like, so here's some of their work on Object, on Tezos. So you see their development here, and using a lot of these kind of, shapes, suggestive shapes here. So anyway, it's just kind of an interesting artist in passing. Here's another one, Rocano, that I'd never seen before. Kind of experimental with the gradients and the line work. Maybe we've seen one of their works before. Dare I open a page at this point? Yeah, so just kind of experimental. You see the shifts in style too. And so anyways, pretty interesting work from Rocano. Give them a follow. And kind of in a somewhat similar look, Tukes. Now, remember Tukes, who combines AI and abstract? Here are some very interesting, beautiful works. Soul of Shapes drop is live on Nifty Gateway, open edition, mint until the 16th of December. So you can still get that today. So just interesting work. I'm not exactly sure on how it was made. Yuri J with another beautiful work here. Let's just look at it. Iron with a big water reservoir. So nice piano, just kind of classic Yuri J. Buy for 15, still available. And yeah, this was minted on the 7th of December. So anyway, cool work. Adelia has a couple of works. Summer Paradise, capture your moment to moment. And her composition, like I think Stan Lee would have loved Adelia. Like she can make covers of comics, you know. She is she's got very strong composition and just fun, always a great concept. She's a natural at these sort of compositions, even like the traffic light over here in the reflection of the car. So $9.40, not terrible price. Offer for 4. When did this come out? Yeah, a lot of people here. This looks like it was just yesterday. So still available for just under 10 Tezos, which these days Tezos is at like 93 cents, guys. So a wonderful time to collect. Rainy Day edition of 118, available for 3 also. Again, just has like, looks like the cover of, she's a natural at these kind of great compositions. You know, the super close up with the kind of this depth of field thing going on here. Again, Stan Lee, I think, would have loved to have hired her. So this is someone who, again, remember Tradscape was mentioning Flora Marquez, so we looked at her work, and I'd collected her work before. New one, very interesting for me. The pattern of the shirt, how it ignores the outlines here, kind of a Picasso move, not on purpose, I assume. And just really beautiful work here. Mordango Republic using her classic, I think it's classic stamps, Flora Marquez. Available for 5 Tezos, edition of 15, so that is still available. Might have to pick that up. Just kind of an interesting work here. Poseidon Dow was saying, from Rafis Bull posting on Poseidon Dow's, share your work. So just kind of an interesting kind of animation work here. And continuing on, Timothy Julien. Interesting kind of work as well. It hasn't sold too well. There's still 9 available. Has any sold? Yes, 1 to Atlas Lewis, so maybe I'll pick this up. 177. I like the colored steps and just everything about it. I think the colors are awesome, and the polka dots here. Really nice work from Daniel W. Part of the Drank Dow series, so Skelly on some Zizerp, created by Daniel W. for Drank Dow 2022. Really nice work, sold out. Now available for 17. So I think just a beautiful design work here. Here's another one. And here we go into a little bit of juxtaposition. So here, Le Pendu, so the hangman, I assume, or at least the hanging man card, tarot card. So I like this because it's playing with juxtaposition. We're going to see a few works that are just experimenting with juxtaposition here, which is reminiscent, of course. It's kind of a surrealist move, putting 2 opposite realities in a new context, but which was really, elaborated on, expanded on by, say, Robert Rauschenberg. I use a lot, say, with my with the pixel art sketchbook when I'm just doing, say, digital stuff. I'll put different layers on, and I'll just start, tracing and sketching different, web detritus, so to speak. So here's also juxtaposition, save, load, exit. So just an interesting mix of stuff. Buy for 4. So pretty reasonable for Daniel W. Here's some more juxtaposition. And remember, EdgeQ is the guy who does the trading cards with like the trip hop soundtracks. So him experimenting with the news and with juxtaposition. So very interesting. Okay, we see SBF here, go to jail. So playing with narrative, news narrative, and this is always something that kind of interests me. Sinking ships in the Caribbean, a pirate in the Caribbean, a tribute to sinking ships, a portrait of a sinking man, a pirate in the Caribbean. So yeah, here is more juxtaposition, rustic digital art, some very, very interesting juxtaposition and kind of really nicely done. It's not selling a huge amount, but maybe that'll change. 2 Tezos. Again, I'll have to pick this up. So the soccer game here, again, using current events, whatever this is, maybe a video game. Here we have Super Mario boxes, I assume. Maybe a Mickey Mouse kind of figure. So very, very interesting juxtaposition. We have a few of them here. Here's another one. Adidas with a Nike symbol. A Picasso signature. This is something I've done in the Peloponnesian War. where I had Alfred Jarry, the guy who invented pataphysics, his signature put all across one of the works. And we still haven't talked about pataphysics. I've written an essay, actually, towards a real pataphysics. I've given a lot of deep thought. In a lot of ways, what I'm embarking on here is an exercise in pataphysics. But that is for another episode. So anyways, very interesting work here. I think the market's a little slow to pick up on this. Here, this is tweeted out by Rustic Digital Art, FIFA. I love it. It's like, this is good kind of brain exercise when you start juxtaposing stuff, because the brain can't help but read meaning and relate these things. And you start going, well, what's the relationship? Is it a game? This is a game. Is this the prize? You just start to relate things. That's what the brain does. It finds patterns. Here's another work by Sophie Augura Torporem, just a very interesting kind of distorted pixel artwork. And I think we're going to see a few of those here. Very nice, edition of 8 for 10 Tezos. Here's another one. Let's see if this goes big. Very interesting work here. Looks like a pit of despair. Blood stays on the blade, so someone licking a knife blade with blood on it. Collect for 1 Tezos, edition of 10. You might have to pick that one up. That's almost free there. Pretty cool, kind of glitchy work. LB with a work, Lava Signal. You see the pixelation is increasing in size in this one, so very cool. Continuing on, let's play this guy. So this is by, I believe, a Japanese artist. Ushigo is the name of the work. This is Ushigo, and the artist is Renki. So just interesting pixel experimentation. Can't remember where I found this one. It was either on Twitter. I was looking at Haiti Rocket's collection. Maybe it was out of there. Here is other work by Renki. So just interesting, so I guess this is probably older. So I probably found it on Twitter, I assume. New work by KHC. I missed this one. Peanut and Butter. Press start. Let's see if we can. The great music as ever. There we go. Press start. They always keep me guessing. It's always unpredictable. As I like to say, the hallmark of good art is unpredictability. You don't know what's going to happen next. There's nothing worse than listening to a song and you know what the lyrics are going to be, and you've never heard it before and you know what the next line is going to be, or at least how it ends. New work by Hasdrubal Waffle. I think Santiago, this is like his favorite artist or something. So we're still having this issue at the bottom here, but it's still big enough for us. So again, just this kind of like distortion of pixels. I find it's very bold what they're doing, really testing the limits here. Here's another one, both out yesterday, I believe, playing with these distortions of pixel art. So pretty experimental. That almost looks like Toronto. Maybe it's Seattle, actually, that Seattle Tower. Frasier, so it looks like an episode of Frasier, season 3, episode 25. Interesting. Empress Trash. So here is some work. So just kind of interesting experimentation with pixels here. Kind of pixel art experimentation. This is on Manifold XYZ. There's been a ton of open editions here. Okay, so Motel Vacancy. So let me get the volume on this. This is by Bit, Byte by Bit, one of my favorites. Oops. There we go. So, pretty cool. I like how they, there's a lot going on in Byte by Bit. Like, what I really like, among other things, is at the end he shows his process, or at least what he's using. You don't need to do that. Like, it's like Picasso leaving his trail. A lot of modern art, what makes it kind of modern is it shows the trail. It shows how it was made. You see that somewhat in Impressionist art as well. And Picasso is like super, I want to say guilty of that. Guilty in a good way. Here's another one. So he's playing with the sound. This asteroid or whatever it is, meteor. So, almost like a video game, right? Yeah, it's like a video game. Like, how cool is this? Is this still for sale? I think it's like 50 Tezos or something. Yeah, it's 50 Tezos, but pretty cool one of one. I understand why it's 50 now. So this is native ed. So pretty cool, interesting work here. Kind of animated abstract. I'd categorize this. Player versus player, no winners or losers. In this game, we play to play, PvP. Interesting. Here's another work by native ed, Synth Punk, and he's putting these out on Solana. Interesting time to put stuff out on Solana, isn't it? Pretty nice as far as like remixes of CryptoPunks. I was pretty impressed with this. Here's Dan Control as we look at pixel art work. This is Flies. I don't think he minted this, but I think it's quite brilliant. Just a super minimal work. Playing with representation and pixels, the size of the pixels, these are decisions that are being made. It kind of looks easy, but you have to decide how big this canvas is going to be. So interesting work. Here's one by Stalomir, another pixel art work. Kind of a mysterious artist, and even like this looks like some sort of like heating unit with like a UI on it, a digital UI, and cornfield in the background, so all sorts of weirdness here. Homeworld Memories #2, Food Place. This place is warm and full of smells. The heater machine is turned on, so everyone will get a hot meal soon. Seems like Urdu wants some too, so almost like sci-fi pixel art. Speaking of pixel art as well, Dithered Nostalgia, more nostalgia here. This work is by a course, mech.txt, and I believe he collaborated with someone. But I'm not, yeah, it's collab here, Ice Rain. So I'm not sure if Ice Rain is the programmer, but anyways, here's a taste and his awesome colors here. So pretty cool. I think this series turned out like pretty nice, didn't it? I wonder if we can bring up the marketplace. Let's see. Yeah, 18. Well, okay, that's recently listed. Let's just like low to high. 16. So pretty popular among the generative artist crowd. Wow. So not cheap. Okay, so here we go into AI, our final sort of section here. So Object.com is featuring ClownVamp and the MAIF collective, which he's a part of. And I'm not going to go through the whole feed here, but they quoted some ClownVamp that I thought was important for our AI art debate. So now here are some of the merits. I thought this was extremely interesting what he said here. So they're quoting ClownVamp. The idea that all of art history has been brought into a magic machine that could create anything you could imagine and even things you couldn't. Talking about AI. Very interesting. Within a few weeks, I shifted, so he's talking about discovering AI. Within a few weeks, I shifted my collecting to mainly focus on AI art, and I'm now about 90 to 95% focused on acquiring AI art. My goal is to build a collection that captures the creative explosion that these models have unleashed. On the creating side, I'm a writer and a lover of alternative histories. Since these AI models consumed all of art history, they also consumed all of human history. I realize that these models are also unlocked a new way to tell alternative histories by remixing art history and combining it with narrative text. Okay, so I think this is the right attitude for me, from my perspective, is let's not worry about all this other stuff. This technology is revolutionary. Let's just see what it can do, okay? And, all this other stuff, like, I understand, but again, if the AI can make your work like just like you, as good as you, and I haven't really seen that yet, and then maybe you need to push it, and maybe I'll eat my words at some point, but that's just sort of how I'm feeling about it now. I'm too excited by what I'm seeing. Look at this strange thing, okay? This guy is like a brilliant marketer. And I use that in the most positive sense. Like, look at this. Like, again, if I'm Nike, I'm just like, what do we got to pay for this guy? Like 150 grand? Like, why isn't this guy like doing stuff for us? Like, and maybe he is. Like, maybe they're starting to collaborate. Look, P.S. not affiliated with Nike. This is art. A collaborative effort between man and machine. So this is just brilliant, okay? Like, strange thing. Like, if you thought, Thug Lord was a one-off, look at this, okay? Like, he continues to prove himself, and there's a reason he's the guy that made Thug Lord, okay? Like, I think he continues to prove himself here. We have been, we've really scrutinized Strange Thing, and he is holding up very well. Thank you very much. So props and shout out to Strange Thing. Moving on. And look at this. He's now experimenting with these fantasy cities, which are looking pretty good, if you ask me. Fantasy Renaissance City, experimenting with AI, not for mint. So interesting. Here's another AI artist, David S. Zauder, organic face covers. So someone I hadn't seen before. Just kind of interesting, as we survey the landscape here. Here's another thing, embroidered with natural AI threads. So this is using AI to basically create like mock embroidery. So pretty interesting. Reserve 0.1 ETH. Oh, let's just go back. Oh, we can't go back because we are deep into. So anyways, just pretty interesting though. The embroidered threads. So remember Mr. Shapeless, who we were looking at just before I took a break here. He is now on Super Rare, and look at how good this looks. Like, this is all I see, is look at this. I'm sorry, like, we're not making this without AI, okay? And it's pretty spectacular. So let's just enjoy. Like, this is very fun. What's not to like here? The Man from a High Castle, Genesis on Super Rare, available in a few days. So interesting, right? Look at this sky. Again, it's like those 1940s pulps, but like pushed much further, okay? So The Man from a High Castle, now on Super Rare. This is on Foundation, the researcher. I just think it's awesome. So you're seeing this combination. This is also something I wanted to mention. We're seeing this combination of abstraction in AI. It's starting to get kind of moved. I'm starting to see more and more abstraction here. It's kind of like almost like, and maybe this is where it's coming from, like Kandinsky, Malevich. We're seeing almost like this constructivist abstraction is kind of being put into some of the AI works to kind of give it almost what I want to call more of an arty feel. We're going from what we might consider typical narrative, representative painting, and now I'm starting to see more abstraction brought in as kind of like another kind of, it kind of gives it more of a arty feel, even though the others have an arty feel. And so here's some more work by Mr. Shapeless. So pretty interesting. I think last sold for an ETH. So this stuff is hot. And this is the thing. If they get rid of AI art, let's say, the anti-AI art crowd succeeds and they say this is unethical and convince all the platforms and every, or at least the tech guys like the, Midjourney and, Stable Diffusion and DALL-E, if somehow they convince them that you can't include any of the images from XYZ artists, you know what these are going to be worth? Like if all of a sudden they hinder the technology, all of this art that's being made now, with the free, now that it's just kind of open, I think this art will just go massively higher in price should that happen, should they kind of close the gate. Again, here's another one. Again, you see the strong abstraction. Again, kind of reminiscent of a Kandinsky or Malevich, but different. Here's Moonchild, who has been making huge progress here. We've been following Moonchild for at least a month, maybe longer. Now you're seeing all sorts of very interesting pieces. Poseidon DAO is like buying all of them, kind of on the cheap, 0.16 ETH. This is for like $200, getting these really interesting one-of-ones. Nice purchases. Remember these? We looked at these. So this is all in the last few weeks here, guys. Look at that. Pretty nice work. Frankly, remember what the MoMA was showing, and nothing against the artist there, but I'm like, this kind of still work is kind of exciting me a little bit more. As I was saying, I want to see Strange Thing on the MoMA wall. I want to see even Moonchild here. These are pretty interesting works. This is what's happening from my perspective. Look at this. and we don't, you can love it or hate it, but this is happening. So we're here to just kind of make sure we know what's going on. So Charles AI, Hope Beyond Wrecked, again, playing with these internal, external scenes, kind of with a bit of a Roman flair. Here's another one. Again, starting to move in that abstract direction a little bit here. So this sold for how much? 5 ETH for a raw AI work. So you gotta love it. There's a business for you. Greek and Roman architectures. So anyways, and then you see some screens here. It's a beautiful work. If these are prompts, it's pretty impressive, okay? Here's Delta Sauce tweeted out this artist who I'd never seen before, Maneki Neko AI Art. Just follow them. So another interesting AI artist for Maneki Neko AI, okay? So interesting, beautiful scene there. Here is a physical work that I saw on Instagram as we finally wrap up here. Thanksgiving Day painting. This is not, Adele just posted this. The artist is here, John S. Thanksgiving in German. And I just thought this was a beautiful physical work here. So let's just actually click on. So here's that artist. It's a woman, Johanna Seidel, artist. So totally awesome. Look at, it's just that is a beautiful painting. So yeah, Johanna Seidel. And that, my friends, is our show. Thank you for joining me again. Until next time, take care.